Hey, it's Jack, no K, Jack in the Attic. Today I'm going to talk about myself, more than usual. So I'm actually refilming this because the first version, I was in the middle of a terrible chronic illness flare. I was on day 8 of a headache. The brain fog was foggy. I missed several questions in the Q&A because I kept losing track of the order, and most importantly, I didn't think about my answers at all before I sat down to film, so just starting over seems like the best idea. I did pick this topic because I was very low energy and thought this might be not easy, but easier, and I was just extremely wrong. The first time I filmed, it was just kind of incoherent. I don't mind showing up like kind of raw and vulnerable, but I also want to be like understood. The clarity is kind of important. Overall, it was just worth redoing. I did group the questions into categories. Several of them kind of overlap, so they'll be answered together-ish. I'm probably not going to get to 100% of the questions. There were a lot more than I expected, honestly. I thought it was going to be kind of a long shot to get enough questions to make this video, but the first recording was an hour and 15 minutes. So I'm going to see if I can pare that down a little bit this time. I also want to say I received a lot of well wishes, and I want to say thank you for that. I am doing significantly better. After I started feeling better, my shoulder did explode, but now that's improving. There's just a lot going on. Also, I want to preemptively apologize for pronouncing everyone's name wrong. Everyone's name. So let's just get into the questions. Actually, let's not. Let me tell you what I'm working on. So I'm working on the Hylia dress. The bodice part is not done, obviously, because it needs the button placket, and I'm still gonna see if I can add sleeves, but wow, that's a deep armhole, and I didn't think about that, so we're just working on the skirt right now. I'll figure out the rest later. Now on to the questions. I have the questions in front of me this time, so that should help. In the category of general fiber arts, how did you get started in fabric crafts from Robin and KC? How did you get into fiber arts by Havana Rose? And how did you learn to knit by Darkness's Muse? So I learned to knit when I was pretty young, like 8 or 9. I'm not sure where it came from, but I ended up with a children's learn to knit book, and apparently I only read the first few pages because I only learned the knit stitch and literally nothing else. So I made a bunch of rectangles, and I kept making rectangles, and I thought, oh, I can make anything out of rectangles, right? And I didn't question that belief until my late 20s. Luckily and gratefully, I grew up in a very crafty household, so picking up new crafts was easy and encouraged. Crochet I picked up much later, and when I did, I found it much more intuitive. I started learning in 2018 or 2019, which was great timing. It set me up perfectly to have a built-in hobby for 2020, which is when I really got into things and started learning more techniques, more than just the basics anyway. So I got back into knitting like a year and a half to 2 years ago, and that's when I finally learned more than just the knit stitch. Learned to purl, learned to increase and decrease, and that opened up a whole new world of knitting for me. From Andrea Anderson, or Andrea, do you knit continental or English? I knit continental. You can kind of see I'm somewhere between picking and throwing. I meet in the middle. I don't know why. From Thrift Shop Millionaire, what are some of your knitting or crocheting hot takes? So I have actually a list of hot takes, but I'm saving that. I'm keeping that in my back pocket for maybe a dedicated video sometime down the road. Unfortunately, my hottest take, and no one likes this, my hottest take is that most things are somewhere in the middle. For example, I have held a very firm belief that if a pattern is too hard to follow, but it uses techniques that you already know, then the pattern is poorly written and it's not you. However, caveat to that is that people learn differently and absorb information differently, and different styles of patterns work for different people. So yeah, that firm belief that I still hold to this day is not true. The next category is about specific projects. Not specific projects, it's about projects broadly. First question, I couldn't pronounce this if I tried. GRCMLLT asked, what has been your most challenging but most rewarding project? And I had to think about this one pretty hard, and I don't have like one solid answer. I would say that at the time I started it, this drapey mesh cardigan thing that I'm wearing was quite challenging. I had to start it over multiple times. The neckline shaping was really confusing, and a lot of it was improv. And I think for something that I wear constantly and get a lot of use out of, and this is the piece people ask me about the most. People ask me where I got this, unless they can tell it's crochet, then they ask what the pattern is, and I say there is not really one, but here's what I started with, which I will link because it's a good pattern and it's free. But it is also sort of most exemplary of my wardrobe and what I like in a garment and what I like to make. So as far as, I don't know that it's necessarily the most challenging, but I think it might be most rewarding. So that's like 70% of an answer, I think. From, I don't know if it's pronounced HA365 or HAH365. Which knitting project first made you feel like a real knitter? It is in quotation marks. And that is a great question because the answer changes every time I learn a new technique and finish something using that new technique. So currently, I think the Salty Days sweater, because that really convinced me that I could do a lot more than I thought. But I probably felt the same way after my second or third garment, and my first 3 garments were all tank tops. I guess that's what happens if you start knitting in the spring. You just make tank tops exclusively? That's what happened to me, I don't know. From Sad Spectre, is there a project you hated making but loved the result? So not a project exactly, but this is exactly how I feel about Italian bind-off. I think it looks great. I hate doing it. I'm incapable of memorizing the steps for some reason, so I have to have a tutorial open the entire time I do it. If I think I can get away with not doing it, I won't do it. So again, that's not a project, but it was too true to not say. Next question is from Mish Crochets, who is an incredibly talented fiber artist and a lovely person, and I think you should go check out their account. Mish is meesh.crochets on Instagram. Asked, is there a project you recommend for a first-time knitter? And my answer to that is rectangles and then triangles. Triangles actually taught me shaping. I learned basic stitches on rectangles, and then I learned increasing and decreasing on triangles. My first projects involving shaping were back-to-back 2 identical triangle kerchiefs that I made by following a YouTube tutorial for a washcloth that was knit corner to corner. So I basically just kept increasing until it was the size that I wanted, and then I stopped. But it did have an eyelet row on both sides, so it included increasing and decreasing technically, even though the piece only increased. So rectangles, then triangles, and then basically any beginner pattern I feel like you can accomplish once you have those two down. I'm being so serious. Triangles will get you there. The next question, I had multiple answers to this one, and I finally narrowed it down to a real answer, so get ready. From My Yarn Adventures, what is your ultimate goal knit? So my previous goal was to have an entire outfit of just my own hand knit pieces, and then I accomplished that. The pants helped a lot. The pants were the missing piece. But I had to come up with a new one. And after thinking about it for a while, my new ultimate goal is to knit an entire garment from my own hand-spun yarn. I'm still a very beginner spinner, so that's kind of a ways off, but I definitely want to do that. From Julie Beans with 2 Z's, what knitting / crochet techniques would you like to learn? I do want to learn more colorwork techniques, even though I don't think I would wear that many of them. I'm also guilty of hearing colorwork and thinking like circular yoke sweaters almost exclusively, and that's not true at all. It's an extremely broad category. So that's a me problem. But I do still want to learn. I could knit my own Halloween socks, and is that actually my ultimate goal? That might be my ultimate goal. Changed my mind. No, can I have 2? I'm holding those 2 goals kind of equal in my mind. Make my own Halloween socks. Knit something completely from my hand-spun yarn. There will not be overlap. I will not be knitting Halloween socks out of my own hand-spun yarn any time in the foreseeable future. The next category is yarn and tools. This may have been the biggest category. 2 questions that are related, and I'm going to answer together. From Nicole Spicoli, I crochet but want to learn to knit. What knitting needles do you recommend for a beginner? And Fiberfool asked, metal or wooden needles? And I do use both. I have a set of interchangeable clover, bamboo, something or other needles that were deeply discounted. They were already on sale at Joann, and then that overlapped with one of the mythical 60% off any one item, even if it's on sale type coupons. So that's the only reason I acquired the bamboo ones. Also got a set of metal interchangeable something or other from Knit Picks. I really don't know what type they are specifically. But they are a little bit long. So right now what I'm working on filling in my collection is shorter versions in metal of the needles I use the most often. I have 1 pair of short needles right now, and that's it. What I recommend for a beginner, this is going to be another answer that I don't think anyone's going to like, but I feel like it's true. The best option for a brand new beginner is whatever you can get your hands on for free or almost free. If you have a craft type thrift store nearby, is it creative reuse? Am I using that term correctly? Or flea market or estate sales, garage sales, a regular thrift store with a crafty section. Also, if you have crafty friends, definitely ask them, is there anything you can borrow just to get started? The odds that they will say, take this and do not try to give it back to me is pretty good. Is there a mysterious cookie tin in your home, in your parents' home, in your grandparents'? Hold on. Have you seen, is there one of these near you? Look inside of it. It might just be sewing stuff. That's good too. It might be cookies. I don't know, but check in there. So my reasoning here is not that I don't want you to invest in your craft. I just want you to have like a better understanding of your preferences before you do that. Buying something expensive and then not really liking it is really frustrating, and no one should have to go through that. So secondhand, ideally, cheap or free, that's my actual recommendation. So this is like 5 questions in one. I lumped these all together. Decadent Doll asked preferred fiber content. Fiber Fool asked favorite fiber to work with. Stitch Skia, maybe, asked do you have a favorite material to work with. L like the letter asked what is your favorite natural yarn brand. I'm trying to switch to natural fibers. Essence ESANTS 19 asked, there were sirens briefly, asked, I also have an allergy / sensitivity to wool. What alternatives do you recommend? So to address all of those kind of at the same time, I love working with cotton. I love working with any blend of like cotton and or linen and or bamboo. Cotton and silk blends are really nice. Cotton and merino blends are one of my favorite. I'm using a cotton merino blend right now. I'm still not sure at all what's going on with my allergy symptoms. I tend to do just fine with superwash wool, and surprisingly alpaca. I say surprisingly because it seems that fuzzy wool yarns with little fibers that can come off and get inhaled tend to give me like pretty bad allergy symptoms, and I mean like respiratory, like hay fever symptoms, not skin symptoms. I have had reactions to skincare products containing lanolin, which I thought was giving me a good direction to understanding this, and it just didn't at all. I went to an allergist even, and I have fewer answers than I did before. I don't know that I have a specific favorite brand for 100% natural. I find a little bit of it kind of everywhere. Joann actually has some good cotton options for now. I don't know what I'm gonna do when they almost inevitably die. I'm not wishing that. I'm not speaking that into the universe. I'm just, I've seen this happen before. I know the signs. Hobbii also has some nice cotton and linen and bamboo options, and a lot of blends. Honestly, I love a good blend, even if it has some synthetic. I wear my pieces a lot, and I do not have the happiest joints in the world, so hand washing large garments is not for me. I am as careful as I can be without inconveniencing myself too much as far as washing my garments. So a little bit of synthetic giving my pieces some durability is not the end of the world to me, but I understand people are going to have different priorities there. Next up, we have 2 questions that I'm going to answer together. From Knitting Nikabi, what is your favorite black yarn to use? And from Nonimation, not sure, what is the truest black yarn you've used in wool and cotton? So I was a die-hard Cascade cotton socks with an X fan for a while. I accidentally bought too much of it and I started making everything out of Cascade cotton socks. And I have no regrets. It's very soft, it's very pleasant to work with, it's not splitty, but it does have some like light grayish to off-white-ish flecks in it, so it's definitely not a true like dark deep black that I think the second question is asking for. I also do love Drops Cotton Merino, but it's so hit or miss as to whether you're going to get a true deep black color or if you're going to get like black plied with almost navy blue, which is always a little upsetting to me as a navy blue hater. I don't actually hate the color, it's just inconvenient because a lot of the time it looks black and then it isn't. You know how it is. Honestly, I do tend to find that the darkest black yarns are from larger brands. I'm assuming that has something to do with like industrial scale dyeing. I heard once at a knitting retreat that indie dyers have a harder time with achieving true black. But I'm also in my kitchen doing experiments with RIT dye, and I still am not good at achieving black with pre-made chemical dyes, so don't take my word for anything, because that is, again, just something I'm repeating from someone else who heard it from part of the event that I was not at. So, Cascade Heritage sock yarn is very true black and tends to stay that way. It hasn't faded. That's what this is, actually. This is very black, has not faded at all. I don't want to restart. Barocco yarn tends to be pretty true black. K&C cotton is pretty dark black, especially for a cotton yarn. It tends to get that fuzz that kind of diffuses the color a little bit, or I really don't know what is happening there, but cotton tends to look a little grayer. But the K&C cotton yarn is pretty solid black. Another question from Mish Crochets. I love this question. Which yarn company or maker has your current favorite shade of weird green? So, talking about K&C again, their Wool Luxe Superwash or whatever it's called, the one I made my big triangle shawl out of recently, they have a very interesting green that's called Pothosvine, I think. I haven't used it, but I am interested. If Joann goes out of business, I'm stocking up on that. Another yarn I've never used and had never heard of before, except for the fact that it's been open in a tab on my phone for like 3 weeks now. On 4pearls.com, it's called Emma's Yarn Slubby Slub. I had to write that down. Not only am I really drawn to the texture, I want to get into boucle yarn, but I've heard it's a huge pain to knit with. So slub yarn might be the thing for me. So not only the texture, but the sheer number of greens they carry is really impressive. I find that with greens, there's usually like a forest green, sometimes a neon green. I don't know. This has a really nice variety of greens. I have got to get into this like soon. I have to get some of this. Next two questions are related from Fiberfool. Favorite yarn weight from Irma Melkumian, who I love your channel, by the way, but I don't know that I've ever heard your name said out loud or your last name said out loud, so sorry if it's wrong. Do you have a favorite Aran weight yarn or a brand of yarn that you gravitate to most often? I actually don't know that I have a favorite Aran weight yarn. I've been working with a lot of Sport and DK lately. Actually, a lot of DK, like a lot. The Salty Days sweater was DK. The pants were DK. The crochet pattern test scarf that I'm working on right now, I'm using DK. The pattern is for DK or worsted, but I'm using DK. This is DK. Do I use exclusively DK yarn? That's not true, but I use a lot of it. And the next pattern test I'm doing, which will be my first ever knit pattern test, is also DK. I cannot wait to tell you about that. That will be soon. I'm keeping the mystery alive for one more video, probably. Oh, brands that I gravitate to. Okay. So when I buy nice fancy yarn, I'm buying 1 or 2 skeins at a time. So I can't say I have a lot of like repeat purchases or big purchases of like indie brands, even though I would love to. I buy a lot of yarn from Hobbii. I buy a medium amount of yarn from Joann, and that is my real answer. The next category is about like my sort of fashion sense and alternative stuff. The first question is from Lochnitz. Who is an alt or goth crafter you feel inspired by? And it's pretty funny that you asked me this one in particular because, like, first of all, I love your channel. I love your videos. I've been watching your stuff since before I even thought of making my own channel. So, but I think the first like alt fiber arts creator I got really into was Alt Knots. I first saw them on TikTok in like 2021 or 2022, and I have been following them since. I will watch anything they post. I would love to compile a list of like alternative fiber arts creators and do a video on that. That would be fun. Stay tuned for that, I guess. From Fiberfool, have you always leaned more alternative? And from, is it Huga? I can't remember how to pronounce that. Google is saying Huga. Huga Hobbit Handmade says, what does being goth/alt mean to you? What draws you to the style? So I have always leaned more alternative. I was definitely a weird child. I was exposed to a lot of mall goths at a young age, and I watched SLC Punk like way too young. These were pretty formative experiences for me. I was also a very young child actor at my local Renaissance festival, and that actually exposed me to a lot of alternative people with a lot of different styles. For the record, that was back before casts were considered employees, so it was not illegal. Normal stuff. I've definitely fluctuated between some various alternative styles over the years, and my music taste has definitely varied wildly. We will talk about music stuff in the personal section at the end. But being now in my 30s, I have settled into this like cozy vampire farm goth swamp witch art teacher elderly toddler type vibe. And as far as what it means to me, I'd like to discuss that in the context of fiber arts, I think. Because while fiber arts and crafting in general isn't inherently anything in particular, it definitely can be an effective expression of non-traditional and anti-capitalist and generally alternative values and beliefs. In the same way that I'm only half joking when I say Prince is goth, it's like that. In that, like, crafting is for everyone, but it is definitely for the weirdos. Does that actually answer the question? I'm not sure. A related question from Pink Lemonade: how has knitting and crocheting affected your style? I will say it has definitely affected my actual, like, sort of tangible style in that I am cozy all the time and I really don't leave the house without wearing something that I've made, and I take like some pride in that, being able to create my own wardrobe. But I also don't think it's a coincidence that I got really into crochet and swore off fast fashion around the same time, like within the same couple of months, I think. So I think it's changed my philosophy on fashion more than anything. Because I can make whatever I want, almost. You know what I mean? I can wear whatever I want, and so I wear exclusively only what I want. Also, again, I'm in my 30s, so my body hurts. So every cozy knit piece is crucial. This question is, I think it should have been in the general fiber arts section, so I'm going to throw it in here because I missed it. Are you still a sewist? And if so, would you ever show more sewing content on the channel? And that's from Mer Does. I am still a sewist. Sewing is it's a much more physical craft for me, so I really have to be up to it. Like, I really have to have the energy and a low pain day to be able to get much sewing done. And I'm not great at sewing. I have been doing it for a long time, but it was another one of those things that I learned really young, and the amount of progress I've had since then is as little as I can manage. You know, as little as I can get away with and still come out with finished projects that I like. So I probably won't show much process. Also, the area that I'm sewing in is like 3 or 4 distinct little areas of the living room and dining room, so that would be a nightmare to film. But I will definitely keep showing finished items for sure. I really just haven't sewn anything since October. From Fellaini Charges, which is a great name. What made you decide to start making YouTube videos, and did you have any previous editing experience? And this is the beginning of the personal section, so no more fiber arts, really, just stuff. So, long story short, and a lot of this is stuff that a lot of you already know. I am chronically ill, I have a lot of chronic pain, I don't leave the house much, I talk about that a lot. But I had and have a very strong desire to participate more in the craft community. And this might be too much to share, but it's pretty funny and it's true. So basically, I told my therapist I was thinking of starting a YouTube channel to sort of accomplish that, to be able to participate in community and have these conversations and get feedback and all of that kind of stuff. And she got really excited about the idea, so there was no going back. That's kind of a joke. I obviously wouldn't have actually done it if I didn't want to, but also no real editing experience other than some like basic Windows Movie Maker stuff, which does not exist anymore. When I started this channel, I was like, yeah, I'll use Windows Movie Maker. That's not a thing anymore. I'm using Clipchamp, which I think is the replacement for Windows Movie Maker. It's free. I'm gonna try to speed run the rest of the questions, so let's go. From Luna Tuna, favorite music genre, band, or artist? From Silver Mirror, what's your favorite band? And from Thrift Shop Millionaire, what music do you like? So I've already been called out by multiple people for having a Ghost tapestry in my background. I really love Ghost. I think I've seen them 6 times now. I've traveled to see them 3 times. I have a Ghost tattoo, like it's a whole thing. I'm not going to the upcoming tour because, oh my god, venue sizes and ticket cost, and again, my body hurts and I cannot, like, I can walk for a really long time. I cannot stand for much time at all. And concerts are so much standing. And I overall, I think I'm just kind of over huge concerts at huge venues, but I am happy for them. I also really like Priest. According to YouTube Music, last year I was in the top like 1% or point something percent of listeners, which is pretty funny. A band that I am as dedicated to as Ghost would be American Murder Song. You can see a tiny little piece of one of their posters here. If you've ever seen Repo the Genetic Opera, Grave Robber is the other half of the band. I have seen them on every one of their tours except for the one that got cut short in 2020. I even flew to California alone to play a board game with them. No further explanation there. I guess I also have an American Murder song tattoo. They are kind of an acquired taste. They're pretty specific. I don't know necessarily that I am telling you to go listen to them, but I do love them. I also really love Twin Tribes and Twin Temple, and I get their names mixed up all the time. I'm gonna skip listing a bunch of bands though, and I'm gonna skip right to the probably two most surprising answers to this question, and that is number one, my all-time favorite band forever. It has been and will remain the White Stripes. I got very into them as a child and it stuck. I have their discography. They remain very special to me. I love the White Stripes. R.I.P. The other thing is that, once again, according to YouTube Music, apparently my top 3 albums last year were all Death Grips. So apparently I listened to a lot of Death Grips. Hear me out, though. Death Grips is very calming to me. I find it very soothing. It quiets my brain. In like no world would I call Death Grips my favorite band, but Death Grips is always there for me, and apparently I listen to a lot of Death Grips. Next question from Luna Tuna. What other hobbies do you have? This one's hard because currently I work, I nap, I do yarn stuff, and I do YouTube, and that's kind of it. I do play Magic the Gathering. I used to do a lot of oddity collecting. Someday I will be able to do a room tour when it's tidy and put together, and that is not today. I used to paint quite a bit. I don't much anymore. I do enjoy painting like D&D minis, even though I don't play D&D. Some video games. My newest console is an Xbox 360 from like 2008, if that tells you anything. From Mish Crochets, what are you currently watching or listening to while you knit and crochet at home? So I watch a lot of YouTube. My partner and I have been kind of obsessed with the Game Grumps Supermarket Simulator series. I also watch a lot of like history stuff and deep dives into topics I don't care about, and like film analysis for some reason. I watched a 7.5-hour video about The Witch, the movie The Witch, the Robert Eggers movie The Witch. That was good. I liked that. I listened to a lot of audiobooks too. A lot of like pretty garbage mystery novels. I do like some good mystery too, though. I do really like Frida McFadden. She's like very self-aware and understands the tropes that she does still tend to use. I find her pretty clever. Solari Gentle is incredible. She's probably my favorite mystery writer, even though I've only read 2 books. She's great. Plus, like, one of the books is set in Lawrence, Kansas, so that's pretty close to home. I do love a horror novel. I'll read anything Grady Hendrix writes, unfortunately. Unfortunate because he makes me listen to or read graphic descriptions of people losing fingernails in like every single book. What is your problem? I will say I'm glad I read Horror Store as a book and not an audiobook, because that one was pretty gross. Next question from L like the letter. Can we get a tattoo tour? Very intrigued by the armpit tat reveal. Okay, so I would love to. However, my tattoos are strategically placed to be easily hidden. To do a tattoo tour, that's hard to say. To do a tattoo tour would be quite revealing. I can tell you about my tattoos instead, and then come spring and summer you will see more of them. Not all of them, but more, I guess. So they are all black and gray. I don't have any color tattoos. Mostly American traditional. I have a lot of Halloween flash. I do have my left armpit, as you've seen, left knee, and left foot. For some reason, I'm convinced the left side of my body handles pain better, which can't be true, I don't think. I also thought it was a good idea to get some of the most painful areas out of the way first. And honestly, yeah, just to see if I could handle it. I would get my other armpit tattooed. I would get my other knee, like, it's like the area around my kneecap and a little bit on my kneecap. I would do that again. I don't know that I would get my other foot tattooed. That was a very twitchy couple of hours. Most of my thighs are covered. I have a large kind of new school piece of Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors. I have a very large circus tent on my stomach. My back is mostly covered, like I have a 3/4-ish back piece that's carnivorous plants. And then this shoulder and inner arm and armpit area is all plants as well. I would like more. I kind of just forget to schedule appointments, and my main artist moved a couple hours away. I obviously have my septum pierced. It used to be stretched to 7 millimeters. Then I lost that jewelry and just let it shrink, and it never got smaller than this, which is like 3 millimeters. It is the correct size to fit a straw type stir stick through. Party trick my mom hates. Next question from Erica Morales. Favorite food, favorite movie genre, zodiac sign, are you into astrology? I will talk about movies in the next question, so to answer the rest, I love any kind of potato. I love soup with noodles or beans or tofu, those kinds of soups. I love miso soup. I love, honestly, tofu in general. I like cabbage a lot. I've been in a cabbage phase for a couple of years now, so I don't think it's a phase anymore. I love sushi. I love pickles. I think salt is my favorite food. I like popsicles. Zodiac sign. I am a Gemini sun, Capricorn moon, Leo rising. Am I into astrology? I am like a skeptic, but in a fun way. I'm like a fun skeptic, you know? That's like, can I say this? It's maybe the most heterosexual thing about me. It's my like lack of astrology knowledge. Favorite movies or shows from Snack Pack Sneak Attack and from the previous question. I like horror movies. I like musicals. I like bad comedies. For some reason, when I was a child, I thought Will Ferrell was the funniest person in the world. My favorite movie of all time is Mamma Mia, but my favorite musical is Chicago. Can't explain that. And I like TV shows where women do crime. I love Killing Eve. I love Yellow Jackets. I do watch every season of Survivor. Star Trek Deep Space Nine we've talked about. And I have seen every episode of Riverdale multiple times, and not because it's good. Final question, also from Snack Pack Sneak Attack. I'm glad I got to say that twice. How long have you been playing Magic, and what colors do you like to play most? I have been playing since March of 2023, I'm pretty sure. And then my first tournament was November of 2023, late November. I did get 8th place out of 18 people. Very small. But top 8 is top 8, in my opinion. I play Pauper almost exclusively. I love a mono red aggro deck, love a burn deck. I was taught to play Magic by a mono red aggro player who happened to win a Star City Games Open. However, I do primarily play Bogles because I am fundamentally a bad person. Blue is my enemy. My partner knows this and often plays against my Bogles deck with a blue-white control deck, and I hate Tolarian Terror with my life. Shield Red is my girlfriend. Yeah, that's my answer. Red or green and white. Red and blue is fun too, even though, you know, I said what I said about blue. Did I lose to a very control-y mono blue deck in the tournament? Like super hard? Yeah, I did. Okay, so there were more questions I wanted to get to, but this is already way too long, even on the second try. I feel like I was able to get through a lot of questions very quickly. And then I look at the time and it's an hour, so if I didn't get to your question, it is not because I didn't want to. I will probably do another one of these like periodically for like channel milestones. Thank you for 3,000, by the way. I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about that. I'll talk about that another time. But anyway, you will have another chance to get those questions answered if the previous hour of me speaking didn't cover it. So I hope the first half was somewhat helpful, maybe? I know a lot of it is just my opinion, so that could be hit or miss for you. But as always, my ultimate goal is to keep you company while you're doing your craft, so I hope I could provide that for you today and always. I have talked out loud for too long now. I need to go eat a snack and lay down. I am losing my voice, losing my mind. Go to the general and save some time. Okay, so I will see you next time. Go live your best yarny life, and I said those backwards.